Into the display options on the bottom. You see the display option on the bottom?
Yeah. I think it's better now. I made it full screen for everyone. May I continue? Okay, excellent. Okay, so let's review one by one the settings from the conversion goal. The first one is very simple. It's just the name of the conversion goal. You put the name of the specific interaction that you're tracking. Then we head into the conversion type. This is currently optional in our network, but it will become compulsory in the near future. Sorry. Conversion type represents the type of product that you're promoting. And it will become compulsory because it has become an important setting for many of our features, such as Smart Bid. Conversion type gives you insights of the type of offer that you're running. Here's a selection of some of the offers that we currently allow in our network. So it goes from app install, leads, purchase. You can also select multiple conversion types if you're planning to use the same conversion goal for multiple offers with different payouts or with different funnels. Then we've got conversion value. There are three types of conversion value. There is no value, through which when a conversion happens, there's no monetary value associated to it. There's fixed value, in which you input manually the value of that user interaction. And then there is dynamic value, to which you pass it through a certain parameter. This is used mainly when you're running affiliate offers and you're getting the payout of that offer through a token of the product owner. Then you've got conversion count, which determines whether for that, when a conversion is called, you will count only one instance of that specific conversion call, or you will allow it to be called as many times. So for instance, if you're running server-to-server postback tracking, if that same postback is called multiple times and you have every conversion enabled, then every single call will be counted as a conversion in your statistics. Then we've got the conversion window, which, as we talked earlier, determines the time frame through which conversion is considered valid. We currently allow from 12 hours to 90 days, and you can also input a custom number of days of your choice. And finally, we've got the order. This is a mainly visual setting, and it's intended for advertisers who have multiple conversion goals created in their accounts. So if you want to order your conversions in your statistics by the specific interaction, by the order of the interactions, for instance, a landing page visit, a checkout visit, and purchase, then you can order these conversions with orders 1, 2, and 3. We currently allow up to 10 levels of order for every conversion goal. Once you have created your conversion goal, the admin panel will tell you the 2 available options to set up your conversion tracking, either through server-to-server tracking or through pixel tracking. We will explain them now. Types of conversion tracking. Let's begin with server-to-server tracking. With server-to-server tracking, a third-party server notifies the conversion through an endpoint or through a URL, which is the one that you're seeing on screen, the postback URL. This structure is repeated for all the postback URLs, and the only values that change are the goal ID, which correspond to the conversion goal that you created in the admin panel, and the tag, which corresponds to the conversions tracking string, or as some of you may know, the click ID. At the end of the postback URL, it is important that you always append this conversions tracking string because it contains all the information about from where this conversion is coming from. Let's look at an example of how to set up a server-to-server tracking using one of the tracking solutions available, such as Volume. Here you can see an example. As an advertiser, when you're using a tracking solution and you're setting up Exoclick as a traffic source, you will get this template which contains all the tokens that you can use. And the very first token, which is the most essential, is a conversions tracking one. Volume will already tell you that in order to define this conversions tracking in the tracking URL that you're going to use, you need to use the parameter tag. And then on the postback URL, you will use the parameter external ID, which, as you have seen in this screenshot, is what Volume uses to identify the string that is passed through the tag parameter. Okay, it is very important that you understand the difference between the tracking URL and the postback URL. The postback URL is what the third-party server uses to notify us whenever a conversion is made. And the tracking URL is the URL we will send the client to, and that the tracking solution will get the information from, which includes the conversion tracking string. If one of these two URLs is configured wrong, then you won't see these conversions reflected in your statistics. So it is important to know exactly how these two URLs communicate with each other. But for now, let's focus on the postback URL. So at the end of the postback URL, we define the parameter through which the conversions tracking will be appended. And once you have set up Exoclick as a traffic source, you continue your steps with your tracking solution. You identify your offer, you put all the parameters that might be relevant to you. And once you have created that offer and you have created that campaign in your tracking solution, you will get the campaign URL, which you will add in Exoclick's campaign settings. You can see that URL that is being used as a variation was a URL that was created through the tracking solution, through Volume. And at the end of the campaign URL, in this tag parameter that the tracking solution told me I need to use, that's where I'm going to add the conversions tracking dynamic tag, which will contain all the information about the interaction. Okay. Here in this webinar, we have used Volume, but we're not working with Volume exclusively. And the solutions that you're seeing here are not even the complete list. We're continuously adding new partners, and we also work with custom solutions too. If your solution doesn't appear here, or you want to know more about how to integrate your own in-house solution with us, then you can contact either customer success or your account manager, and we will set up some meeting, or we'll start a discussion to create this manual for you. So let's quickly wrap up what we have explained here. First of all, when you're setting up server-to-server tracking, the first step that you need to do in your tracking solution or your third-party server is to define Exoclick as your traffic source. And that's by specifying all the tags and specifying specifically the parameter that you're going to use for conversions tracking. Once you have done that, you follow all the other steps with your tracking solution and you create the tracking URL. And once you have your tracking URL, you add it as a variation in your campaign in Exoclick. Remember, it is very important that your campaign in Exoclick has a conversions tracking parameter. That's the tag that's going to send you all the information. Now, assuming that you have followed all the steps, you should already be receiving some conversions in Exoclick. But there might be some cases when the third-party server notifies Exoclick, we return a postback error. A successful postback URL looks like the one you're seeing on the screen right now. You can see that the conversions tracking string always starts. It's not always, but very often starts with this OOD or OOC string of characters. Okay. A postback URL might return an error due to the following reasons. The first one is the generic error tag is invalid. And that the most common reason behind this error is when the conversions tracking string has been truncated for any reason, usually due to a limitation from the tracking solution server. You can see here on the screen that the string of characters is shorter than the one we showed in the previous example. If the characters from conversion tracking returns are sent to us with less than 150 characters, or if they're not showing the full length, then we will return the tag is invalid error message. It is important that you understand that the string of characters from conversions tracking can have a minimum of 150 characters and the maximum of 700 characters. Another common error is when you get conversion has already been notified and saved. This happens when your conversion count has been set to one count only, meaning that that specific postback cannot be called multiple times. If you call it another time, then you will get the conversion has already been notified. If you don't want to receive this type of errors, simply change the conversion count to every conversion. Then you've got conversion window is not respected. This error happens when the postback URL has been called outside the conversion window. Let's take a look at this example. So I have a conversion in my report that happened when the user sent a click on the 5th of July, and then that conversion was received correctly a few minutes later. This goal has conversion count every, meaning that I can call this postback multiple times and they will be counted, as long as it happens within the conversion window. If I try to call this postback again now, which is past the conversion window, then I will get a conversion window is not respected error, because what matters is the date of the original click. So as long as that postback is called within the conversion window of the original click, then it will be counted correctly. But if it's called outside, then you will get this error. That's why it's very important that you know what's the allowed conversion window for the product that you're promoting. If your product doesn't have any limitations in terms of when it can notify a conversion, then we suggest you to increase the conversion window to the maximum possible. The current maximum, remember, it's 90 days. So having discussed server-to-server tracking, let's focus now on pixel tracking. Pixel tracking is a script that the advertiser puts in the landing page or in whatever page that he wants to track, and that generates a 1x1 pixel that will be used to identify the user through cookies. Here on screen, you can see an example of a pixel tracking script that we offer in Excel. Okay, and when that script is called, when that script is generated and generates a cookie to identify the user, then you will see these images being generated. Well, you won't see these images because they're invisible, but these are the images that we use to generate those cookies, to identify those users. You can see that the images represent the various domains that we use for ad serving. Once the images are loaded on the user session, the cookies will remain there for a year, or if the user decides to delete cookies or to refresh cookies. Okay. Here's an important thing. The pixel identifies users regardless of whether they come from Exoclick traffic or not. And that is because the cookie that we generate, it's not associated to our advertisement. As long as the pixel tracking script is there, that's generate the cookie that we use for tracking, which is the goals cookie. Okay, we'll talk this in very detail later during the presentation. But just for you to know, it is important for you to understand that the cookie generated by pixel tracking is called the goals cookie. It has a lifespan of a year or lesser if the user decides to refresh cookies, and that it's used for retargeting. Now, let's head again into attribution. As we said, attribution is an important matter because it determines to which campaign or to which channel that conversion should be attributed. For pixel tracking, this is essential. We have just explained the goals cookie, which is generated from our pixel tracking script, but that in isolation doesn't work to track conversions in Exoclick campaigns. In order to track conversions, we need another cookie that is called the CTAG cookie. And that CTAG cookie is generated by our ad zones. The moment in which the CTAG cookie is generated depends on the ad format that you're using. But here is how it works. When a user sees an exoclick advertisement or interacts with an exoclick advertisement, the CTAG cookie is generated. Okay, and if that user later turns out to generate a conversion, or meaning it reaches the page where the pixel tracking script is located, then it will generate the goals cookie. With the CTAG cookie and the goals cookie, we match them together, and that's what allows us to identify the user that generated the conversion. That's what allows us to reflect that conversion in your statistics. There is a specific scenario that will help you to understand how pixel tracking works, and that is through a video campaign. Video campaigns have an additional feature, an additional advantage, which is the type-in traffic. As we said, the CTAG cookie is generated in various environments depending on the ad format. In video, it's generated in the impression. This is what allows us to register type-in traffic. Type-in traffic means users who saw your ad but didn't click on it, but later search for your product. So if a user sees the video advertisement, and even though it didn't click on that advertisement, later search for your product and made a purchase of that product or a sign up for that product, then that will also be reflected as a conversion for your video campaign, provided that you're using pixel tracking for that offer. I'm going to show you a video that illustrates how this process works. Okay. So what you're seeing here is an in-stream advertisement. When the in-stream advertisement starts playing, we can see that it has already generated the CTAG cookie, okay? But I'm not going to click on that advertisement. Instead, I'm going to look for the URL of that product that was being promoted to me, and I'm going to search it through a search engine, through Google, basically, okay? Now, I have reached the pre-purchase page. The pixel tracking is not there yet, but now the user is going to click in the button, it's gonna make that conversion, and in this page, we have the pixel tracking code. The pixel tracking code generates the goals cookie. And now that we have the goals cookie and we have the CTAG cookie, we have generated a conversion for that campaign. And that was a conversion that was generated through type-in traffic. You can see that the goal was registered and there was a big impression, but there is no click. So that's the power of pixel tracking. It can be very useful for certain types of campaigns and certain types of products. The limitation, of course, is that you need to be the owner or you need to have access to the HTML of the product, which is why some of you might only have the option to use server-to-server tracking. But if you have access, if you can insert this pixel tracking code, then it can offer you many advantages, such as the one that you're seeing right now. And since we're talking about attribution, we're talking about video, there's one last topic that we can also discuss, which is BAST attribution. Excuse me. Sorry, BAST attribution. What you're seeing here is a BAST XML. An XML is the structure of a video advertisement that is served through BAST. Some of you might have the option to put a BAST tag as a campaign variation instead of adding a video and a click URL separately. If you can add your BAST tag, then you can add these custom events, which not only give you additional information of the playback of the video advertisement, but you can also use these additional endpoints, these additional tracking events from the BAST structure to add custom tracking events and to do a typing attribution of your own. If you have the server and if you have the tools to do so, then you can add additional events to this BAST structure, which will allow you to track additional settings of your conversions. Or even if you're able to do retargeting through a third-party server, you can add those pixels and continue doing retargeting even with other partners. if you're interested in doing past link campaigns, but you don't have access to this feature, then contact customer service or your account manager to discuss the possibility to open this feature for you. So now that we know what are the types of conversion tracking that we have in Exoclick, let's talk about the benefits. Well, the first benefit, which is the one that we have been repeating over and over again, are the detailed statistics that you're going to get. You can see here the additional columns that explain the revenue, the profit, and the return on investment of your campaigns. You can also get the conversion value, which is the sum of the value of all your goals, unless you're using dynamic, in which case, when you're using dynamic goals, the conversion value will be an average of all the different values that you're passing through these conversions. You get the CPA, which is the effective cost per action, essentially what you're paying to get that conversion, and the conversion rate, which is the number of conversions divided by the number of clicks that you received. Then you also have Bidder. Bidder is an automation tool that allows you to block certain sources depending on the rules of your choice, and also to optimize the bid of the zones that you're targeting based on the conversions that it's getting. It is important that while bidder blocking rules don't necessarily rely on conversions, automatic bidding optimization does rely on conversion goal, because it needs to get the value and the amount of those conversions in order to set the appropriate bid for the zone that you're targeting. Same with Smart Bid. Smart Bid is another feature that requires conversion data in order to function effectively. If you remember from the last webinar, Smart Bid optimizes the previous features and the traffic that you're getting based on the conversion rate and conversions that you're getting from that traffic. And you can set up an optimization strategy to continue receiving traffic from those sources, or to optimize your campaign just to receive traffic from the sources that have been sending you conversions. If you want to have more information about Bidder or about Smart Bid, remember that you can visit these blog posts and these case studies. We already featured the Smart Bid blog post and case study in our previous webinar, but you can check it again by visiting these QR codes or by checking them afterwards the webinar. Remember that once the webinar finishes, you will receive a recording of the session, so you can check these articles afterwards. And remember, from the settings that we have discussed, remember that if you're planning to use Smart Bid, it is very important that you specify the conversion type that you're using. So whether it says lead, single opt-in, purchase, etc. Now, we didn't cover this topic before, so let me explain. Let's focus on retargeting now. Retargeting is a feature that allows your campaigns to focus on users who might or may not have generated a conversion. We currently have two options of retargeting in Exoclick. We have positive retargeting and negative retargeting. Let's cover a scenario of a positive retargeting campaign. So we have a user that has clicked on your ad, is visiting your website, but doesn't complete a purchase. If you did pixel tracking and we identified that user on the checkout page, then you can later set up a retargeting campaign to aggressively focus on that user and chase those users so that they complete the transaction. In the case of negative retargeting, what happens is that this user clicks on an advertisement, completes the purchase, and therefore it is no longer interesting for us. So what we're going to do is, in another campaign, we're going to set up negative retargeting so that that same user doesn't continue appearing. And this way we can focus on getting new users. This is a very useful strategy in order to cut costs from your current prospecting campaigns and leave positive retargeting only for the most aggressive campaigns where you want to finish those purchases. sorry, not be wary. Take into consideration that retargeting will only work if you're doing pixel tracking, because retargeting relies on cookies. If you're doing server-to-server tracking, you cannot do retargeting. It is critical that you do pixel tracking if you're interested in retargeting. Another interesting thing about retargeting. Imagine that we have a user that is visiting a site that belongs to the Exoclick ad network, and later it's also visiting a site from a network that it's not Exoclick. If that user, let's imagine that you're running campaigns in both sites, but for your campaigns you're using Exoclick's pixel tracking. If you're using pixel tracking, this means that it will generate the goals cookie that is needed to do the conversion tracking. But that user might not be coming from Exoclick. So how does this work? Well, it doesn't really matter. As long as the user has the goals cookie, then retargeting can work. The moment that that user sees an advertisement that belongs to Exoclick, but you have set up negative retargeting, even if that user has never seen an Exoclick ad before, as long as it has Exoclick's goals cookie, the cookie that is generated through pixel tracking, then you can do negative retargeting with him. Or the other way around. Let's imagine that this user has never been through a site from the Exoclick ad network, but has seen some other from your campaigns. And since you were using pixel tracking, that user has the goals cookie. Can you do positive retargeting to that user? Well, yes. So the moment that user visits a site from the Exoclick ad network, if it has the goals cookie and you have positive retargeting, then we can retarget that user. There is only one limitation, which is that users that, whenever we identify a user with pixel tracking, but through a site that doesn't belong to the Exoclick ad network, that user won't be reflected in your statistics. Because at the end of the day, if you want it to be reflected in your Exoclick statistics, it needs to come from Exoclick traffic. It needs to come from Exoclick's campaigns. So what we're talking here is the cookie. The goals cookie is what allows retargeting to happen. So if that user sees your ads and you're using pixel tracking and that user is not coming from the Exoclick ad network, we can still identify through the goals cookie, but it won't be reflected in your campaigns until it visits a site from Exoclick. So now, having dealt with conversion tracking and the many features it offers, let's head into a case study. Let's talk about how beneficial it is to properly manage the settings from your conversion goal. What are we going to discuss here? We're going to discuss a campaign that is promoting a credit card purchase dating offer. This campaign is using the email ClickSat format, is targeting the Netherlands, targeting all devices, but only specific browsers, and targeting only Dutch language. It is important to notice that this user is already using SmartBid, so it has some knowledge of how to use conversion tracking, and is using a maximized CPA strategy on the sign-up goal, meaning that it wants to focus on getting the best CPA possible on that specific conversion goal, which you can see here represents a lead single opt-in. Okay? It's interesting to notice that we're going to be talking about these two goals, the sign-up goal, which has no value associated, and the sales goal, which is the one that is passing value, that represents the purchase. So what did this client do? At the beginning of July, the conversion window from the sign-up goal, remember the goal that has no value associated, was increased from 24 hours to 7 days. And the conversion window from the sales goal, the one that has a dynamic value, was increased from 24 hours to 90 days. And also the conversion count from the sale was changed from just one conversion to every conversion. What did these changes bring? But here's the result. So before the change, you can see that there were some signups, but there were very little sales. So after the advertiser introduced these changes, you can see that the signups increase and also the purchases. Why? Because we gave the system more flexibility in allowing more conversions. And since SmartBid was focusing on getting more signups, we were creating more opportunities of purchases. So even though SmartBid wasn't focusing on the sale, by giving more signups and by allowing more flexibility to these conversions, we gave the campaign more flexibility, which then turned into profitability. You can see that the return on investment skyrocketed in just a couple of weeks. Yeah, just a couple, in a few weeks, but you get the idea. In a relatively short period of time, the profits and the performance of the campaigns improved considerably. So now we're reaching the final part of the webinar. Let's finish with some figures. So here's these figures were taken from 30 days data from the period of July, and we're looking at 40,000 campaigns. And here's a list of the most common conversion types being used in the platform. You can see that the top of the cake is taken by the double opt-in lead, okay, followed by other types of leads and multiple conversions types. Then we've got the campaigns for conversion value. At the moment, we still have lots of campaigns that aren't passing any values through the conversion, but there is already a considerable percentage of campaigns that are passing dynamic value and a smaller one being fixed value. Imagine the amount of data, imagine the usefulness of your statistics if you changed this no value to either fixed or dynamic value. Imagine giving a monetary representation of these user interactions in your campaign. And then finally, we've got the campaigns per conversion count and per window, so representing this flexibility that we have seen in the case study. You can see that right now there's still a big percentage of campaigns that are using the default one conversion per 24 hours. But those users that are making the most out of the network out of Execless campaigns are already playing with these settings, are using one conversion per 90 days, are using one conversion per 7 days, or every conversion per 90 days. You can see that there are many settings, there are many different options that you can play with. And that's the importance of conversion tracking. It's not only having a representation of user interactions, but understanding in which situations, in which conditions these interactions happen, and also how these interactions, how these conversions are reflected in your business model, how you can adapt the conversion settings that you have in Execlick to have an accurate representation of your offer performance and to adapt to your business model. So that's the end of the webinar, and now we're going to open some time for your questions. Okay. Could you please explain, Anton says, could you please explain the Execlick cake tracking iteration setup and how the cake's character limit issue is solved? Unfortunately, I cannot explain. I think that we have a cake tracking manual, but if there is some limitation of some sort, that limitation, yes, I'm being confirmed that we have a cake, hold on. See, there we go. Okay, so forget what I just said. Thank you very much, James. So, yes, cake has a limitation of characters. I'm saying it right now. So what you're going to do is that you're going to split the conversions tracking string into multiple parameters. So as I see now, cake offers what it's called sub-IDs, and there's S1, S2, S3, S4, and S5 to store different tracking values, and that every S, so to speak, has a limit of 100 characters. So here it says it's 500 characters. I should correct that. It's 700 actually. So what you're going to do is you're gonna add, you need to turn the conversion tracking into smaller chunks, and that chunk is gonna need to be passed into S1, S2, and S3. Let me see. Let me share the link. I don't know if you can see the link. I'm gonna share the link with you, and you can check it out directly. Or if not, let me see if I can share the screen.
I can share the link with them. You could do the next.
You can share the link. Okay, excellent. Yeah. So Giles saved this question for me. He's going to share the documentation with you, and you can see there how the conversions tracking string is split into the various parameters from the Cake platform. Yeah, I can see. Great. I would like to know how one would set up a campaign whereby I use the pixel tracking software to retarget users who just visit my site from any source or registered my site from any source with ads across Exactly ad network. Well, that's actually simple. So what you're going to do is you take the pixel tracking code, you create two separate goals essentially, so that one represents just the visit and the other one represents the actual sign up, the lead. And you put the pixel tracking code from that visit in the HTML of your landing page, and then you put the pixel tracking from the sign up goal in after the sign up has been completed. So once you put these two separate pixels, assuming that the user follows the whole funnel, even if it's not coming from Exactly traffic, the goals cookie will be generated for both conversions. So with those cookies on the browser session, on the user session, we're already able to retarget that user. But note that you will only be able to retarget that user when that user comes from Exactly traffic. So you create these two goals and you put it in the landing page and the thank you for your sign up page. Let's assume that you have a user that comes from a different ad network and visits your landing page, but doesn't complete the sign. So what is going to happen is that you're going to create a campaign, a retargeting campaign that has positive retargeting on the landing page, and you leave the other conversion tracking as ignored. You can choose not to do either positive or negative. And what's going to happen is that if that user comes from Exactly traffic, visits any of the sites from the Exactly ad network, and you have the winning bid, then that retargeting campaign is going to show to that user. It is important that one thing that I forgot to mention is that positive retargeting requires a much bigger pool of users. You need to have a lot of users with the goals cookie in order to do effective positive retargeting. It is much easier to do negative retargeting. But either way, if that's the campaign that you want to set up, then create those separate goals and put them on the separate pages that we have discussed. I saw them. Okay, I saw the manual. I saw the manual, but I was still trying to understand whether I only need to have one S1 and S2 parameters in the final URL and remove everything else. Also wanted to ask how long is an average Exactly click ID? After click ID is 200 plus characters. Okay, for the first question, no, it's not necessary to remove all the other parameters. So you can still have, say, campaign ID, whatever you may need. I think Cake has plenty of tokens to address this additional information. What is important is that you have as many whatever Cake tokens call them as possible, the S tokens, as many as possible. Because at the end of the day, if you add an excess number of tokens, it doesn't really matter, because if it comes empty, that's not a problem. It's a problem if it's cut short. So no problem with adding many S2 or S3 or whatever. And then how often that click ID is plus 200 characters. I don't have an exact number, but from my experience here as a technical support, which it's been a few years already, I know that it's quite often. It's 250, 300, but again, that's personal experience. I don't have an average number. Brett said, also wanted to ask, what goals would one choose for just visiting my site? The ideal one would be website interaction. And you can use that for landing page visits or for clicks on specific links or whatever. Website interaction is the way to go. Artem asks, Ruben, what is the attribution for video and banner ads? First click, last click, first impression. Can we change it or set it automatically by default? It's last click. So whatever campaign clicks last, it usually has preference. And let's say, so for this scenario that Artem is covering, let's imagine that you have a video campaign and the user is doing type-in traffic, but then before the purchase is completed, the user clicks on a banner. If that is the case, then the banner campaign has priority because whatever format has the click always has priority over type-in traffic. But usually, yeah, we do last click attribution. And no, right now it is not possible to change the attribution for regular campaigns. Of course, remember, if you're running Basslink, then you can set up custom tracking, you can do stuff on your own. But remember, those custom events that you're adding through your Basslink, they won't be reflected on Exoclick statistics. Exoclick statistics will continue to show only video impressions, video views, clicks, and conversions. So whatever tracking events that you're setting up on your Basslink, that will be shown only on your platform or on whatever tracking server that you use to set up your Basslink. It won't be reflected in your Exoclick statistics. Okay. Okay, we've got another question. If my product owner rejects the conversions I sent, can I remove those conversions from Exoclick? At the moment, no. We don't have a way to discount conversions or to count them as negative conversions. We only have conversions in the positive value. There's not really much we can do in that case because we don't determine what happens to conversion. We cannot do anything with whatever the conversion happens after it has been notified. That's something that you should discuss ideally with your product owner and with customer success or your account manager. Miguel asks, so the conclusion is that with server to server, you cannot retarget a user that only saw the video, only a user that, for example, goes to the pre-lander with the website interaction. Yeah, that's correct. So it's not a matter of what type of interaction. It's not what type of interaction the user does. If you're doing server to server, then the conversion is notified by your tracking solution. That's it. So there's a connection with the product owner, the tracking solution, and Exoclick when you're setting up all these details in your tracking solution, and that's it. There are no cookies here. There's no cookies in this whole process. And again, cookies are necessary for retargeting. And so since pixel tracking is the only one that's generating cookies, if you're not doing pixel tracking, then you cannot do retargeting. Also, can we explore more ideas on negative retargeting? Yes, absolutely. So imagine negative retargeting. Okay, so I was saying before that you can do negative retargeting to cut up costs of your prospective campaigns. Now, let's imagine that you have a user that is visiting your landing page several times. Okay, let's imagine that you have conversion count and you have a high conversion, you're allowing every conversion count and you have a high conversion window. And you have a user that is visiting your landing page many times, but it's not turning up into any sale or any sign up or whatever. Another further way of prospecting to discount those type of users is to set up negative retargeting on your landing page visit. This is risky because, of course, the moment that a user visits that landing page, that's going to have the goal, and then you won't be able to negative retarget that you won't be able to continue target that user anymore with your negative retargeting campaign. But it's another level of prospecting. It's another level of continue having fresh users to your campaign. Or let's imagine that you have a product that is you have a website that is promoting different types of products, and you want users to get to know you better. You want to raise brand awareness, and rather than focusing on a specific product, you want to showcase as many products as possible. So what you can do is create multiple conversion goals for each of your products, and then create multiple campaigns, each of them setting up negative retargeting for a specific conversion, for a specific goal. That way, what you're getting is that user is going to be seeing different ads for different products. So at the end of the day, what you're seeing is the negative retargeting is especially useful for setting up various levels of prospecting and keeping always a fresh user base. New users keep coming. Okay, I have one question here that says, you mentioned the importance of using conversion tracking on your tools. Is this configuration helping any other tool? Well, SmartBit is helping, definitely. And we're planning, it's one of the reasons why we want to make it compulsory. We're planning to add this additional layer of information to many other features. You mentioned the errors from postback URL, but you didn't mention the errors from pixel tracking. What are the common errors from pixel tracking? Well, it's not like server-to-server tracking where you have specific error messages. The errors that you get with pixel tracking depend on the user environment. So whatever extension, whatever tool that user might be using to visit the website. So the most common scenario for pixel tracking, for instance, is when a user has an ad blocker. So if the ad blocker extension determines that the pixel tracking code is used for advertising, then the images from the pixel tracking won't be generated, and there won't be any cookies. So there would be no conversion. That happens, and that happens with any other extension that might be blocking the render of pixel tracking. There might be a situation as well where, depending how your website is built, you put the pixel tracking code, but the goal ID is not generated. That could also be a problem, because if there is no goal ID, then we cannot associate that user to the conversion in your account. So that's also an important thing to bear in mind. Remember on the slide when I showed you the many images, the various images that are generated by the pixel tracking code? If those images are missing, then it means that the user is not being identified with our cookie, because those images are the ones that set up the goals cookie. Okay. I don't know if we have any more questions. Anyone else? Any doubts? Okay. Okay. So I think that we can finish it here. Thank you very much all for assisting. Thank you very much. I hope that I explained myself clearly, and then the information that you found is useful. Remember that you will receive a recording from this webinar, and I believe that it will also become available in YouTube in a couple of days. And yeah, remember that You can check more information about conversion tracking in our documentation as well as in our blog posts. And yeah, and if you found any ideas, if you came across any ideas that sound interesting to you and you want to implement them in your campaigns, feel free to discuss them with your account manager, with the customer service and customer support. Sorry, yeah, customer service. Sorry, and we can explain to you what strategy you need to follow and the settings that are most appropriate to reach the desired result. Okay, and if you're having any troubles setting up server-to-server conversion tracking with your tracking solution, or the pixel is not being loaded correctly into your landing page, then you can contact us and we will be happy to review it for you. Okay, so again, thank you all and see you on the next webinar. Hi, everyone. There might be a situation as well where depending, thank you very much all for assisting. Thank you very much. I hope that I explained myself clearly and then the information that you found is useful. Remember that you will receive a recording from this webinar, and I believe that it will also become available in YouTube in a couple of days. And yeah, remember that you can check more information about conversion tracking in our documentation as well as in our blog posts. And yeah, and if you found any ideas, if you came across any ideas that sound interesting to you and you want to implement them in your campaigns, feel free to discuss them with your account manager, with the customer service and customer support. Sorry. Yeah, customer service. Sorry, and we can explain to you what strategy you need to follow and the settings that are most appropriate to reach the desired result. Okay, and if you're having any troubles setting up server-to-server conversion tracking with your tracking solution, or the pixel is not being loaded correctly into your landing page, then you can contact us and we will be happy to review it for you. Okay, so again, thank you all and see you on the next webinar.